Hello students. So we continue our discussion. Today we are going to discuss aphorism number 155 to aphorism number 161. So aphorism number 155 is having the most important statement of without considerable disturbance. And what is the meaning of this? So we go to the discussion and see the second point first, that after the administration of most appropriate remedy, after the administration of most appropriate remedy, cure takes place without any considerable disturbance. There is no aggravation. Now, what is the meaning of this without considerable disturbance? That we will be discussing in the subsequent discussion of aphorisms. So, at this point, what is the meaning? After the administration of similimum, cure takes place without any considerable disturbance. That means there is no aggravation. Now let's see further. Each medicine has given lots of symptoms during proving, and it is listed in our homeopathic materia medica. So all of you know that the deep acting remedies lycopodium, silica, natramur, they have lots of symptoms on each system, and it is listed in homeopathic materia medica. Amongst these, only few will be matched with the totality of symptoms of natural disease. Other symptoms of the same remedy are not at all coming into play. They are not called. They will not be acting. So, which symptoms will be acting? Those which are matched. Those symptoms will only come into play, and other symptoms of the remedy will not be produced at all. And what is the reason for this? It is due to minute dose of the remedy. So symptoms which are not homeopathic to the case are not produced. And sick-like principle reacts only to stronger similar disease. So there are two reasons that cure takes place without any aggravation, because the dose of the remedy is minute, and sick life principle, which is representing few symptoms, and these symptoms will only be influenced or overpowered by the stronger similar symptoms of the remedy. Hence, the other symptoms are not called into play. They will not be produced. So, the meaning of without considerable disturbance means no aggravation is produced, or it is no aggravation is present during the administration of the similimum. So we go to the next aphorism number 156. It is very important statement, the very important phrase which is given by Dr. Hahnemann is next, it is next to impossible that medicine and diseases cover as exactly two triangles with equal sides and equal angles. So what is the meaning of this? So we'll see what is the discussion done by Dr. Hahnemann. Even though similimum is given in minute doses, it can produce trifling symptoms in few patients. So these patients are very sensitive and they might produce few trifling symptoms. These symptoms are not produced in not delicate or sensitive patients. Thus, what is the meaning? That even though similimum is given in the minute doses, sometimes there occurs a phenomena that the few symptoms are produced, and especially in those patients who are very sensitive, and they are not produced in those patients who are not delicate or sensitive. What is the reason? That vital energy is enormous. So, in such conditions, the other symptoms are not produced, and the pathway of recovery continues. It is impossible that disease and remedy cover each other like identical triangles. It means what? As we saw in the last aphorism number 155, that every medicine is producing number of symptoms in the prover. Out of these number of symptoms, few symptoms are matched with the patient, and thus the remedy is indicated and administered to the patient. It means that it is impossible that the disease and remedy cover each other like identical triangles. So here the important word is identical. So here what is the meaning? The matching is done of the remedy out of its number of symptoms. Few symptoms are matched with the totality of symptoms of patient. So Hahnemann tells us this statement: it is impossible that disease and the remedy cover each other like identical triangles. And what is the meaning? That sometimes even though we give similimum in minute doses, it can produce trifling symptoms in few sensitive patients, right? And we will see the reason in the next aphorism. Reason of what? What is the reason? I am going to tell you is that even if similimum is given in minute doses, we observe sometimes few symptoms are produced. So what is the reason of this? That we will see in the next aphorism. But in majority of cases, the symptoms are not produced as vital energy is enormous. So other symptoms of this remedy are not produced as vital energy is enormous and the dose is small. But even though dose is small, sometimes we observe that the other symptoms of the medicine are produced. So aphorism number 157 describes what is homeopathic aggravation. Unhomeopathic symptoms are not called into play due to minute doses. Symptoms which are not homeopathic to the case are not produced. So same point is repeated in the first two sentences. So due to minute doses, symptoms which are not homeopathic to the case are not produced. Yet, during first few hours, we may observe aggravation, even with the minute dose. So, if the dose is not sufficiently strong, then for it lasts only for few hours. But if the dose is large, same symptoms are increased and they last for longer time. Due to medicinal disease exceeding the strength of original disease. So what is the reason that we get the aggravation of symptoms? Is because the medicinal disease exceeds the strength of original disease, and thus the symptoms due to the natural disease are now under the influence of stronger medicinal disease. Sometimes it can be a bit more stronger and patient feels aggravation of symptoms. So this type of aggravation in first few hours is called as homeopathic aggravation. And even though we give minute dose, it may be produced. This is because the reason is given in the next aphorism. So mind well, during homeopathic aggravation, which is described in 157th aphorism by Dr. Hahnemann, that this is aggravation of the symptoms. Same symptoms, and let me add here, the aggravation is of existing symptoms. Aggravation is of existing symptoms, and it is only for few hours. And why it is produced? It is produced due to medicinal disease exceeding the strength of original disease. Medicinal disease is more stronger than required, and it is exceeding the strength of original disease. So we go to the next aphorism, that is aphorism number 158. So further description of homeopathic aggravation, that aggravation of symptoms in acute disease is due to first dose during the first few hours. This indicates a very good prognosis and remedy is correctly chosen. So with reference to aphorism 43 and 43 to 48, we see that this is the aphorisms who describe natural cures. So our as usual example, that smallpox removes ophthalmia means what? Stronger similar disease removes weaker similar disease. So homeopathic aggravation is aggravation of patient's existing symptoms, and this is seen in acute disease in first dose, in first few hours, first dose and first few hours. This indicates a very good prognosis and remedy is correctly chosen. This is called as homeopathic aggravation. So it is a good sign. Physician feels happy because it indicates a correctly chosen remedy. So it is seen after the administration of the first dose and during the first few hours. This is called as homeopathic aggravation. And why it is good prognosis? Because it indicates remedy is right, disease is curable, and this aggravation is going to pass very soon and patient feels better in this type of aggravation. And reference of aphorisms 43 to 48 is given, which are about natural cures, which are describing the natural cures. So we go to the next aphorism, again of homeopathic aggravation. The point we left in the 157th aphorism, that even due to minuteness of homeopathic remedy, sometimes there is increase of disease and it is slighter and shorter. This increase is because that dose cannot be made so small, otherwise it will not act. So the increase in the disease is only apparent. It is for a short time and it is only for first few hours in cases of acute disease. So Dr. Hahnemann is very specific in describing homeopathic aggravation during acute disease is seen in first few hours. And even though the dose is small, it is minute, sometimes there is the strength of the medicinal disease may be slightly stronger than required. Hence, patient feels increase in his symptoms. But as we saw in the previous aphorism, it means that the patient, it means that, the remedy is correctly chosen and indicates a very good prognosis. So it is seen in first few hours in acute disease. So we go to the next aphorism. This is again describing homeopathic aggravation, that even during the course of treatment, the dose of the homeopathic medicine is minute. The reason is that we still get the aggravation. It is because the dose cannot be made so small, otherwise it won't act. It won't act, it won't cure, and it won't annihilate. As this dose, if made so small, cannot produce stronger similar disease, which is the prerequisite of cure, because the medicinal disease has to be stronger than the natural disease, then only it will cure. As this is the examples of natural cure. The smallpox is stronger than the ophthalmia, then only it can remove ophthalmia as example of natural cure. So, the dose of homeopathic medicine cannot be made so small, otherwise it won't act. It won't act, it won't cure, and it won't annihilate. So, the appropriate homeopathic medicine is similimum, and the dose has to be little stronger than the natural disease. So, if the natural disease is not a long standing, then this aggravation will last for a short time. Not the very smallest homeopathic dose possible, so it produces aggravation. So very small dose will not be sufficient to cure, and dose cannot be made so small, otherwise it won't act. Hence the dose can be a bit stronger, which is the prerequisite, can be producing some symptoms which patient is having the increase in the sufferings of his symptoms, and this is called as homeopathic aggravation. So this is a good prognosis and it indicates a correctly chosen remedy. All of you keep it in mind. This aggravation indicates good prognosis and it indicates a correctly chosen remedy, and it occurs because the dose was slightly stronger than required. But here the concession is given to the physician that if he makes the dose smaller, it won't act and we cannot achieve our mission to cure. So Dr. Hahnemann has clearly given if the dose is small, it won't act, it won't cure, and it won't annihilate the natural disease. So it has to be little stronger, and in sensitive patients it may produce aggravation of existing symptoms in patient. So we go to the next aphorism. Homeopathic aggravation is a primary action of homeopathic medicine. Increase in the sufferings of patient in first few hours in acute disease, as is described in the previous aphorisms. In chronic disease, this increase in the symptoms occurs only at the end of treatment. So in chronic disease, this aggravation occurs at the end of treatment. It indicates a similimum is administered. It indicates that the dose is minute but little higher than required. The increase does not appear with doses of renewed dynamizations. Thus, Dr. Hahnemann tells us that this increase in the sufferings of patient or increase in or aggravation of symptoms does not take place when we are using the doses of renewed dynamization. What is renewed dynamization? Nothing but 50 millisiemen potencies. So in chronic disease, if at all the aggravation occurs is at the end of treatment. So all this discussion is on homeopathic aggravation, and I have made it very clear that homeopathic aggravation is aggravation of patient's existing symptoms. It indicates the remedy is correct. It indicates a good prognosis and this will disappear within a short time. And the reason for homeopathic aggravation is that the potency was slightly higher than required. But the potency cannot be made so small, the dose cannot be made so small, otherwise it won't act. The dose should produce a stronger similar disease to the natural disease. Then only cure takes place. Okay, so I end the discussion here. Thank you.